Started for tonight. Coming up on tonight's episode, heat races. We're going to be talking about getting the monkey off your back finally. They're also a what the heck moment that I've noticed, one picture that just seemed to be a little bit on the odd side of things. A main conversation tonight talking about reading between the lines while you're out there on the speedway. And I found an interesting video of in-car camera. I just watched that stuff over and over and over and absolutely love in-car camera stuff. And then our Victory Lane speech tonight talking about the perfect night of racing. So while everyone's getting logged in, I want to thank everyone for joining me for episode 2 tonight of Dirt Track Speedway. Ready for tonight's racing action on Dirt Track Speedway episode 2. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully you're enjoying it. Now, the show is about lifestyle of dirt track racing. Not a super show for if you're looking for highlights from all the races from the weekend, video highlights from the weekend. Plenty of already websites doing a great job of that, so I'm not going to infringe too much on their territory. Instead, I want to talk about more about the lifestyle that takes place with dirt track racing. I had a few pictures that I found over the weekend that I found rather interesting, and also some cool things. A monkey off the back. August Bach, I talked about this, I think, in one of the test episodes, where this poor cat has been leading up front, and then something mechanical happens to go wrong with the machine, and finally was able to park it, as they say, hashtag parked it at Independence over the weekend. So congratulations to August Bach on his win. Now, here's a viral video that has been going all over the place, and it is Dana Benning, track promoter at the Independence Motor Speedway. I posted this, actually it looks like last night. Auto racing is an American pastime. What has made racing great over generations is the value of the weekly show. We all grew up at the weekly venues cheering on local heroes who gave their own hometowns identity. Relationships have been made that have withstood the test of time. Once in the racing family, you're a lifetime member of a unique fraternity. And he goes on to talk about, and he even says, hey, just get out and support dirt track racing. You go to the Independence Motor Speedway Facebook page and you can check it out for yourself. And what I found interesting about it, this is why I wanted to point it out, there's over 30,000 views on this thing so far, but he doesn't just say come to Independence Motor Speedway. He talks about the tracks in the area. There's Farley, Marshalltown, and West Union that race on Friday night in that area. And then he goes on and mentions the Saturday and Sunday tracks. Not many promoters get that, and I think that was very cool. But again, if you want to read more, you can check it out at Independence Motor Speedway's Facebook page. Here was an interesting victory over the weekend. Congratulations, Caden Carter, graduating from William Penn Industrial Technology. So you better start winning some races there so you can start paying for that tuition. Or maybe El Presidente is the one paying the bills. Either way, somebody better start winning some races to pay off the tuition. I'm about to go into that whole world myself. Here is my kid's graduation. That's for high school, though. I'm about to embark on that whole process of how the hell are we going to pay for this? And finally, I have no idea what this is, but Kellen Motorsports does a great job of supporting racing in Northwest Iowa, also in Minnesota, and he posts a ton of pictures. I have no idea what this is, but it's under the icon images, so apparently the dog's an icon. There was no caption with it, but thank you to Kellen Motorsports for giving me a laugh here tonight. That is for sure. Aerial coverage tonight is being over our Artifice Speedway. It's the backdrop here at Dirt Track Speedway, and the sport cars are on for heat race number 1, and you'll notice that heat race number 2 is in staging. If you joined us last week, you'll notice that there's a couple of new pieces that have been added. The flag stand has been added. Also, the concession stands have been built and are in use tonight here at Dirt Track's Artifice Speedway. New improvements to come here as well. And aerial coverage tonight presented by the Racing Burger, available at several Iowa dirt tracks every weekend. No need to worry about Racing Burgers ever being too dry. There's plenty of grease to lob the rear ends of an entire late model field, and each Racing Burger provides plenty of gas for your trip home. So this weekend, make sure you get out and enjoy a Racing Burger. Napkins not included, but highly recommended. So for tonight's main conversation, I usually try to find something to video-wise or maybe an interview or something like that. So I always seem to find myself enjoying in-car camera stuff. And IMCA TV, I want to thank them for providing tonight's video coverage as well, for giving me this video here. I've got a couple of videos to take a look at. This is Kelly Shryock. He's going to end up battling Hunter Marriott at the Lee County Speedway this past weekend. And I wanted to talk about what I call reading between the lines. As you're a race car driver, you have to anticipate where to go. And this first video here, I want you to look at this car. It's an orange 17 and this black number 11. These are the two you have to keep an eye on. And as Kelly Shryock's approaching as the leader, this is the car here that is the one that's, I think, causing him the most headache on how to anticipate. What he's been doing the 2 laps before, to kind of give you a little clues about midway through the race, he enters into turns 1 and 3 on the high side up here, and then somewhere along the way, middle off, he'll diamond down and sink down to the low side. He's been doing that. Now, again, we're in the middle of the race, and this is a very black, slick track. So watch and see if you can kind of anticipate where you think you would go. There's that high entry I was talking about. And there he is. Chases the car a little bit, but every lap so far, the 5 laps before that, he's driving down. So I think at this point, as Shryock enters the corner, what I think he's decided to do and trying to anticipate and read which line to go is he's going to try to take him coming off of turn number 4. So he's set up. You can hear him get off the gas because the 11 car shook back up in front of him, so that altered his plan. Got him up in the crumbs there and had to readjust. Shryock going to try it again going down into turn number 1 again. The 11 car goes down, but Shryock had to chase the car. So at this point where you're in the car, you're traveling very fast, and you're trying to decide. Again, he's the leader, doesn't know if the guy in second place is going to be coming up on him, and you have to be able to change your lines and sometimes go where you didn't plan to go. So I think at this point he's decided to enter between the 2 cars and trying to get in between them, but didn't able to get the pass done to the 11. So at this point, you start getting frustrated, and sometimes risk and reward, sometimes there's more risk than there is reward when it's all said and done. Shryock again decided to go down in between there. Gave some room there, but I didn't see the video, but as you can see, the 17 car and the 3 car got together. I'm not sure if the 3 car didn't give him enough room. More than likely what it was is just the 2 didn't realize they were going to end up in the same piece of real estate. That's what the video looked like, because it looked like they arrived at the same spot. Beating and banging there just a little bit. No harm, no foul, and Shryock able to finally complete the pass of the 11 car, but you can see the 17 still down there, and he remembered that he's down there, so he adjusted the line. That one was kind of interesting. The video that I really wanted to talk about was this one. I wanted to share a little bit of that so I could set up this video here. This is the last, I think, 4 or 5 laps. There's 1:40 on this video, and if you look, there's a car here, 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 and here. He's the leader with 5 to go. He has the number 62 that he just saw in the scoring pylon at the end of the front stretch on his back bumper or somewhere along the way. So now here these guys are battling in front of him. Where do you go? First thought is maybe you'll go through the middle here, but let's take a look here real quick. Pay attention, the 7S car. The right rear, I think, starting to get a little bit hot. Chases the car. You'll see him get sideways. Remember that. Because you got to start learning and paying attention and studying. It isn't just go up there and you try to pass. Again, Shryock, I think, still trying to study. Now, as he's coming off at turn number 2, you'll notice Hunter Marriott. You'll listen, he was very relaxed about things. I think patient maybe is a better word. I don't know if relax is the right word. All of a sudden, the wick gets turned up. Now, risk and reward goes through the roof because he knows the laps are running down. Again, that 7S car gets a little bit on the loose side, but he's got the other cars that are coming down on him. Got cars on the outside, got cars on the inside, got 2 cars side by side in front of him, battling for the lead. He's got this guy trying to make a move. In fact, I think Marriott led that last lap. All right, so you got all these cars. Where do you think you're going to go? Just try to think about right now where you're going to go. Now, the advantage of this is we've got all this time in the world to break it down and think about it. And then we have that same type of reaction when we're in the stands as well. The thing to remember is adrenaline increases that speed, and you have even less time to think about it. Really nowhere to go, to be honest with you. 7S jumps up off the bottom here, And so I think the plan now is to try to get to the outside of that car and use him as a pick and hope that you leave enough room that he doesn't get into you. Still trying to get by that car there. So now you've got that going on, and you got the other guy on the outside to get by. By the way, did you happen to notice what flag that was, too, while you're watching all of this? That's the white flag that is waving there. A lot of things to process when you're in the car. Fun, I would anticipate, especially if you're any good at it. Those that can do, that's why I'm trying to teach, I guess. Finally able to complete the pass and trying to protect the bottom as best he can. And cruises off, black and whites, and will drive off to the win. And that is tonight's A main conversation. Sometimes it's hard to read between those lines. So my victory lane speech tonight, I've been on the quest for the perfect night of racing. And a little while ago, I think 3-4 weeks ago, we had talked to the race fans and what they felt was the perfect night. Last week it was the flagmen. This week we're going to try and score the perfect night and talk about the scorers, which I think is probably the toughest position at any dirt track, if you ask me. If you think it's easy to score, and I think a lot of people do, here's I got a project for you to do this weekend. Grab a clipboard, a couple of sheets of paper, a sturdy writing utensil, and then tonight, or on your first night on the A mains, when they start coming around, write down all 24 cars as they cross the line. And then do it again, and then do it again. Especially those first few laps, it can be very daunting. So one of the things that I've wanted to try to track down is what exactly is the perfect night. And for the scorer, Kevin Feller said that a smooth run program, not a lot of cautions, and the program to be completed in about 3 hours. That's kind of a similar theme that we heard with the flagmen last week. Kevin Kemp said my one thing would be to be great racing. I want to see exciting side-by-side racing with numerous position changes and battles until the checkered flag. And we'll talk about their skewed view of the racetrack in just a moment. Jen Klein, a perfect night involves no one complaining at the payout window. Amen to that. That typically means that everyone was happy with the way we scored the races. Now, the skewed view of a race is, we as a fan, we can sit there and watch whatever we want. When you're a flagman, last week we talked about, they're looking for that next possible yellow flag to anticipate it. Scorers really only get to see off of turn 4, front stretch, and turn 1. And to be honest with you, as the race goes on, that narrows, and they're really just only looking at the front stretch. So I asked him, do they really think they have a clear-cut view of what can take place during how a race unfolds? I can tell almost everything that happens from the middle of the turns 3, 4 to the middle of turns 1 and 2. I've developed great peripheral vision from scoring races as long as I have. That was Kevin Fuller. Kevin Kemp explained it as this. He says, I always tell people that I never get to watch the races. I just get to see a small portion of the front stretch, and that's all. And Jen Klein says, I typically only see the cars coming off of turn 4 and the start-finish line. However, I still feel as though I see enough of a race to tell how it unfolded. I tend to notice cars that are really coming up from the back of the pack based upon the way I see the car numbers in my head as I write them down. And although Kevin Kemp didn't really say that in his quote, I worked with Kevin, I think, for the last 6 or 7 years, and he and I have had those conversations that he'll notice those type of things. Obviously, sometimes he can't see if a car got into one another off of turn 2 or the backstretch or whatnot. But it is still something he recognizes. Now, each track, each series, and each event scores a race differently, and this can create a lot of friction. And although flagmen are probably the most visible flag official at the track and probably get the most verbal abuse from the fans, scorers, I think, get the most from the race teams. And I think that part of it is maybe they don't understand all the parameters that take place. For example, each track and series and event may have a different set of parameters that takes place for weekly racing when a yellow comes out. Do they go when the yellow comes out, do they take the entire lineup back one lap? Do they score through who crossed the line? And then those that when the yellow comes out, then those go to the previous lap? Or is it just some sort of hybrid of in between? I always made sure when I ran the Hawkeye Dirt Tour to explain the drivers exactly the process that took place in the heat races and the Bs. If the leader took across the line and then the yellow came out, we scored that lap, and wherever the yellow came out, any cars before the line, would be reverted to the previous lap. And I always made sure that I told him that it was the call on the receiver, not the yellow flag, not the yellow lights. It was the receiver that determined when the caution took place, which is another variable. Sometimes when you're in the crow's nest or in the stands, you'll see the yellow flag and somebody passed and crossed the line, but the call on the receiver might have been 2 or 3 seconds before, and all of a sudden, that's a lot of the variables. So the biggest thing that I remember Jen told me when I was talking to her was, if you have a question, just ask. Just don't jump to social media and just bash the official. Ask the questions and find out. And of course, I always like to be talked to like an adult, not like I'm 5, but I have no problem having a conversation like that. Now, the Lady Luck plays an awful big role in racing and an outcome. And Lady Luck, actually, for our 3 scores that I talked about, the third one's the best. You'll have to stick around for this one. I asked him what exactly was it that got him down the path of scoring, and Jen Klein was quick to point out that her mom was the reason. She scored up in northwest Minnesota and whatnot, and then eventually for the United States Modified Touring Series, Jen went along and just scribbled down some numbers. And one weekend, her mom couldn't make it to the races, but she still went ahead with the Staley family anyway to the race, and they were in Winston, Missouri, and Janet asked if I felt, quotes, I could score that night. I told her I would try. At that point, I had no choice but to score the 24-car field. Rather a daunting task, I would think, for a premier series like that. Kevin Fuller said that it was my big mouth as a young one that got me started in scoring. This is actually the one I was hoping for. I must have skipped one there. His dad was an announcer down at Hawkeye Down, Cedar Rapids, and his idol was Ed Sanger. Talking about Kevin Feller. But it was Daryl Dake that took him out one night. And from that moment on, every time his dad would announce Dake's name, I would stand up and yell, he said, "Dake's a snake." The local fans in Cedar Rapids didn't necessarily care for that, and they wanted to kill me despite the fact that he was a kid. He said, my dad found out, and he took me to the infield to protect me. And because I was only 11, I drove him nuts with questions. And that's what kids do. They ask, and they're curious. So he apparently really thought that John Crossan, who was the scorer at that time, was his favorite official. His dad set him down, and since that was his favorite official, I caught on to it, he says, and thanks to John's mentoring, it's been history. Well, that is tonight's episode. Hoping to get out here one of these weekends to maybe do some interviews with the fans or maybe some of the drivers at the track and talk a little bit more about the dirt track lifestyle. Next week, it'll be Wednesday is our date, Wednesday, May 17th. That'll be my next available show for episode 3 of Dirt Track Speedway. That'll do things for tonight. And again, you can like us on Dirt Track Speedway. That's on Facebook, and a website will be coming soon, also with details how you can score that drive shaft as well. So thanks for joining me tonight on Dirt Track Speedway.